You work for a big global company and you're trying to push a project through right now, but you need approval from someone to make progress. The only thing is, that person is in a different time zone to you. Whilst it's coming to the end of the day for you, they're still in bed right now. So all you can do is send an email and hope that when you get into work tomorrow morning, you'll get the approval that you need. But will you get that approval or not? Communication is essential to your ability to get things done at work. Communicate effectively and that approval will be sitting in your inbox when you get to the office tomorrow. But communicate ineffectively and you may never even get that approval. So in this video, we're going to look at what is communication and how can we make our communication more effective. Hi everyone, I'm Jamie and I work as a coach and trainer, and my channel is all about leadership tips for influencing, communicating and boosting productivity. And if you find this video helpful, then a like and subscribe would help me a lot. And you might even be interested in checking out my communication skills for the global workplace online course in the description below. So what is communication exactly? Well, it's a process made up of several steps. It starts in your brain. You have an idea that you want to communicate, and somehow you have to communicate it. And the first step in the communication process is encoding that idea into a message. So in the example we looked at earlier, the message you want to encode is, please approve this for me. Then, once we've encoded it, we need to send that message through a channel. That channel might be telephone, instant message, email, or face-to-face through verbal or non-verbal communication, and so on. As it's passed through that channel, it reaches the other person, and they must then decode it. They take the message we have communicated, and they interpret it into ideas in their head. Finally, they respond to us through feedback. Encode a message, send it through a channel, decode that message, and respond with feedback. Sounds simple, right? But there are so many things that can go wrong at each of those steps. Have you ever listened to someone talk and talk and talk and talk without making any sense? And have you ever seen an email that was so long that you cringed at the thought of reading it? That's what happens when we don't encode well. And a really simple habit for encoding well is to simply think before you speak. Those rambling speeches and emails are what happens when we don't think. Think of it like this. There needs to be distance between your brain and your mouth. When your brain is in your mouth, you'll ramble on and on and on without saying anything of value. But when there is a distance between your brain and your mouth, you'll spend time filtering out the rubbish in your brain before you speak it out of your mouth. So here's a tip. Remember KFC. Know, feel, commit to. Think, what do I want this person to know, feel, and commit to? For example, I want them to know how important it is for them to approve this. I want them to feel that it is urgent, and I want them to commit to approving it immediately. When you ask yourself these questions before you communicate, you'll be able to add focus and structure to your ideas and filter out any rubbish. A vice president I once worked with once told me of the horror waiting for him after a 2-week holiday. He decided to completely switch off during that holiday and not check anything work-related at all. So on his first day back, when he opened his inbox, guess how many emails were waiting for him? 2,000. 2,000 emails. Who has time to read through 2,000 emails? So you know what he did? He deleted every single one of them. When I asked him why, he explained to me that if anything was really important, they'd come and speak to his face. Email is one channel of communication, and it's good for fairly straightforward messages like confirming things or sending things over for reference. But when it comes to important messages, face-to-face is best. Of course, we don't work in the same office as everyone, and face-to-face is not always practical. But remember, the more important our message, the more intimate it needs to be. If you can't do face-to-face, then have a video call. If you can't do a video call, then try phoning them. If that approval is really important, by all means send an email, but at least follow it up with a phone call when you can, just to reinforce how important this is. When they can see and hear not just your message, but the way you communicate your message, there is a much stronger chance of your message actually getting through to them. In Japan, they have a much more sophisticated approach to communication than we do in the West. They have a saying, kuki o yomu, which means to read the air. It means that when they get the message, they don't just focus on the message, they focus more on the way the message is communicated. For example, I once sent the following email to a client in Japan. I'm just writing to double check the training is still going ahead on the scheduled dates, because I need to book my plane tickets. Now, look at that message and try to read the air. Imagine being the reader and thinking, why would they say that? What do they really mean? This is exactly how my client in Japan read my email, and she replied with, "So sorry, as everyone has already booked their plane tickets, we can't change the training date. Also, according to our company policy, you need to buy your plane ticket yourself and reimburse afterwards." It was clearly not the response I was expecting. This is because I come from a culture that doesn't read the air, but I sent it to someone who does read the air. Different people will interpret the same message differently. So when the message gets to the other person and they decode it, there is still a lot that can go wrong here. These differences in decoding messages are much more likely to happen when working with people from different cultures. Someone from France will decode differently to someone from China, and someone from the UK will also decode differently to someone from the US, and so on. So if you are working with people from different cultures, it's important to learn what their culture's preferences and habits are for communicating. And a fantastic resource is the book The Culture Map by Erin Meyer, which is the most practical book about intercultural communication that I've read. Investing just a bit of time learning about cultural differences can save you an awful lot of time in the long run. I've got a little test for you now. Listen to this short story, and in a moment I'm going to ask you some questions about it. It was coming to the end of a long and busy day for the jumbo store. The shopkeeper had swept the floor, and just before the door was locked, a man rushed in and demanded money. The safe was quickly opened, and the owner removed the money. After the money was taken, the man rushed out of the shop and jumped into a waiting car. Within minutes, 3 policemen arrived. And now 3 questions. Question number 1. Not much money was taken from the safe. True, false, or don't know? Question number 2. The police received a call and responded within minutes. True, false, or don't know? And question number 3. There was a robbery. True, false, or don't know? The correct answer for all of those questions is that we don't know. And if you don't believe me, go back and listen to the story again. And please share with us in the comments below how many of those questions you got right. It's very easy to assume we understand when we are listening to people, but there's always a strong chance of misunderstanding. And this is where things go wrong on the feedback part of the communication process. When we don't give enough feedback to each other, this creates the conditions for misunderstandings to arise. A simple habit is to always check you understand. Repeat back to them what they just said using your own words and ask them to confirm if your understanding is right or not. Summarize and check. It's a really simple habit that can save you a lot of pain in the long run. So, communication is a process that can break down at any point. If you want to be an effective communicator, then be mindful of how you encode your message, what channel you use, how others decode messages differently, and if you are giving enough feedback or not. And remember these simple principles to help you improve your communication effectiveness. Principle number 1, think before you speak. Remember KFC. Think about what you want people to know, feel, and commit to. Number 2, the more important the message, the more intimate the channel. A phone call is safer than an email. A video call is safer than a phone call. And face-to-face is safer than a video call. Number 3, Adapt your communication to different styles. Different people, especially from different cultures, decode messages differently. So learn how they decode and adapt your communication appropriately. And finally, number 4, summarize and check. Don't just assume you understand. Repeat back to them in your own words and check if you're right or wrong. If you found this video helpful, a like and subscribe would help me immensely. You might also be interested in checking out my Communication Skills for the Global Workplace online course in the description below. Feel free to ask me any questions in the comments below, and have a great day.